as a biomarker of healing process progression. In day-to-day practice, progression of bone healing is assessed by clinico-radiological parameters only. The probability of correct radiological evaluation of the stage of union is only 50%. There is no serially measurable or quantifiable parameters to predict the complication like non-union and delayed union early. It is very difficult to distinguish early a delayed union from the non-union radiologically. With this background, we hypothesize that as the serum bone alkaline phosphatase level suggests the osteoblastic activity, its serial serum estimations will correlate with the progression of fracture healing outcome early. We conducted this prospective study with the objectives to analyze the correlation of serial serum bone alkaline phosphatase level with the progression of fracture healing process, and to evaluate the relationship between the serial serum bone alkaline phosphatase levels and fracture healing outcome. We included patients with 18 to 45 years of age on both sexes. We included fresh fracture less than 1 week. We were managed conservatively or by the closed nailing. We excluded polytrauma patients, pathological or infected fractures, single bone fracture, and all other causes in which the alkaline phosphatase may increase, such as chronic inflammatory bowel disease and the chronic liver diseases. After the management, we followed our patient and do the clinical examination and radiological examination, do the rest scoring at the regular interval, and biomarker examination by 2 ml venous blood on day 1, 14, 21, 28, 45, 60 and 90 days. We defined bone union as a clinical union plus rest score between more than 7, non-union if then no clinical radiological union or attempt to union by the end of 9 months, and serum bone alkaline phosphatase, the reference value in our study was 98 to 279 unit per liter. After the clinical radiological evaluation, we divided our patient into group A, in which the clinical radiological union achieved by the end of 6 months, and group B, in which the clinical radiological union not achieved by the end of 6 months. The group B was further subdivided into B1, in which the no clinical radiological union by 6 months but achieved by the end of 9 months, and B2, there is no clinical radiological union by the end of 9 months. 95 patients were total studied, 31 was conservatively managed, and 64 by closed nailing. As far as the number of patients in both groups, divided into group A, B1 and B2, there was no statistical difference between the two groups. In conservative group, about 9.6% were in B2, that is the non-union, and 10.9% in interlocking group. The mean age of the patient and the mean age of the fracture at the end of the admission, there was no statistical difference between the two mode of treatment and the different groups of the both groups. The duration of bony healing was measured in weeks, and in group A, 15 to 20 was the range. In nailing group, it was 16 to 24, but there was no statistical difference between the two groups. The maximum mean bone alkaline phosphatase level in group A in the conservative group was 589 unit per liter, while in group B1 it was 469 unit per liter, and this was at the 3rd week. The closed nailing group, the maximum mean bone alkaline phosphatase level was 693, which was higher than the conservative group, but there was no statistical difference. The mean bone alkaline phosphatase level in B1 in the closed nailing group was 525, which was again higher than the conservative group, but there was no statistical difference. We observed that the serum bone alkaline phosphatase in group A and B1 paralleled the healing process and not influenced by the method of the management. The serum bone alkaline phosphatase in group A reached its base value by the bone healing. The serum bone alkaline phosphatase remained elevated in B1, but is significantly lower than group A. Throughout the follow-up, the insignificant rise in the bone alkaline phosphatase in the B2 group. There was no literature available which was correlating the serum alkaline phosphatase with the progression of healing in diaphyseal fracture in humans. But in 1978, there was a study in which the serum alkaline phosphatase was correlated with the fracture around the hip joint. The limitation of our study that the number of patients, it was a single-centered study. We studied only tibial diaphyseal fracture, and we included only conservative or extended conservative, that is the closed nailing patients. We conclude that the future outcome of these fracture can be predicted as early as third week by observing serum bone alkaline phosphatase. The serum estimation of serum bone alkaline phosphatase during fracture healing can be used as useful, reproducible, patient surgeon friendly and cost effective tool to predict the complication of fracture healing in addition to conventional clinical radiological parameters. Thank you.
Any questions? Okay, how did you estimate the bone alkaline phosphatase?
Sir, this was done in Department of Biochemistry of our institution. We took 2 ml of venous blood, peripheral venous blood, that was taken into a vial, and 2 ml. This was sent to the Department of Biochemistry from LAM kit. We used the LAM kit and spectrometry. We did the bone alkaline phosphatase estimation.
No. Why do you want to call it as bone alkaline phosphatase and
Sir,
not just alkaline phosphatase?
No, it is a different. Both are different. Bone alkaline phosphatase is a specific alkaline phosphatase that is an isoenzyme of alkaline phosphatase, and it is only elevated when there is some insult to the bone. Otherwise, in chronic liver diseases, chronic inflammatory diseases, any disease can elevate the alkaline phosphatase and we will get the wrong impression.
You have shown these results, bone alkaline phosphatase. They're nearly the same whether it was done fixed, closed nailing or conservatively.
Yeah.
But in closed nailing, reaming is done.
Sir,
that's the medullary cavities distal.
Very correct.
Can't you imagine that in these conditions alkaline phosphatase will increase?
Sir, the maximum mean level was higher in operative group, but the difference between the highest mean level of the conservative and the highest mean level of the operative, there was no statistical significance between the two, although it was higher.
If there is no question, we can go to the next speaker. No?
Thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Sudhir Ganeshan.
Good afternoon to one and all present here. I am Dr. Sudhir Ganeshan from Sir Gangaram Hospital, and I am going to present my study on the radiographic analysis of the sacropelvic parameters and sagittal alignment of spine and their correlation in 101 asymptomatic subjects in Indian population. Today, I am going to elaborate on a set of numerical values of the spine and sacropelvis, which in harmony will set the spine in an erect posture like this, but a pronounced breach in these parameters can result in profound imbalance. As we all know, the reciprocal curves of spine, sacropelvic parameters and sagittal alignment play a vital role in the management of listhesis, scoliosis and adult deformities. There are various studies in the literature that have laid down the normal sacropelvic parameters in the individuals. But however, there is no study in Indian literature pertaining to these values in Indian population. Thus, we aimed to determine the values of thoracic kyphosis, lumbar lordosis, sacral slope, pelvic tilt, pelvic incidence and sagittal vertical axis, and to analyze the correlation between these parameters in males versus females and in subjects less than 50 years versus subjects more than 50 years of age. The study included subjects between 18 and 70 years of age who attended the OPD of Sir Gangaram Hospital between March 2013 to June 2013 with no complaints related to the spine. All the patients underwent a standing anteroposterior and lateral radiographs, including the hips, done by a single radiographer, and the angles were measured by a single observer using the KEOP software. The following angles were measured. The thoracic kyphosis was measured from the superior end plate of T4 to the inferior end plate of T12, lumbar lordosis from superior end plate of L1 to the superior end plate of S1, sacral slope between the horizontal and a line along the superior end plate of S1, pelvic tilt between the vertical and a line connecting the midpoint of femoral heads and midpoint of the superior end plate of S1, and pelvic incidence as the angle between two lines, the first line between the midpoint of femoral heads and the midpoint of the sacrum S1, and the other line is a perpendicular to the midpoint of superior end plate of S1, and the sagittal vertical axis was measured by dropping a plumb line from the C7 vertebra and the distance from the posterior superior corner of S1. It was considered positive when it was anterior and negative when it was posterior to the posterior superior corner of S1. Statistical analysis was done using SPSS software. Independent t-test was used for descriptive parameters and Pearson's coefficient was used for correlation. Out of the 101 subjects, 50 were males with an average age of 47.16 years, 51 were females with an average age of 48.59 years, and 52 were less than 50 years of age, and 49 subjects were greater than or equal to 50 years of age. The mean pelvic incidence is 53.75 degrees in our population with a standard deviation of 5.31. The mean sacral slope was 35.99 degrees with a standard deviation of 7.53. The mean pelvic tilt was 17.97 degrees with a standard deviation of 7.16. The average lumbar lordosis is 48.84 with a standard deviation of 9.82. The mean thoracic kyphosis was 32.55 degrees with a standard deviation of 10.92, and the mean sagittal alignment in our population is 1.33 centimeter with a standard deviation of 0.868 centimeter. When we compared these parameters between males and females, we found that Indian females have a higher pelvic incidence compared to males, but however, the rest of the parameters were normal between both the sexes. Coming to the correlation, irrespective of gender and age, we found that pelvic incidence has a positive correlation with pelvic tilt, lumbar lordosis, thoracic kyphosis, and sacral slope, and this was especially statistically significant with sacral slope. That is, subjects with higher pelvic incidence have higher values of these parameters. Similarly, regardless of the gender and age, we found that sacral slope has a positive correlation with lumbar lordosis and a negative correlation with pelvic tilt. That is, as the sacral slope increases, the pelvic tilt decreases and the lumbar lordosis increases. Similarly, irrespective of age and gender, we found that the lumbar lordosis has a positive correlation with thoracic kyphosis, and this was statistically significant, especially in subjects greater than 50 years of age. Thus, as the lumbar lordosis increases, the thoracic kyphosis increases and vice versa. When we compared these parameters with the sagittal vertical axis, we found that the SVA has a positive correlation with thoracic kyphosis. That is, as the thoracic kyphosis increases, the sagittal vertical axis tends to become more and more anterior. Comparing our statistics with the world population, Raphael Weyl et al. Showed a strong correlation between the sacral slope and pelvic incidence, between lumbar lordosis and sacral slope. McThiang et al. Showed that there was no significant difference in these parameters between males and females, which is in contrast to our study where Indian females have higher pelvic incidence compared to males. Kim et al. Showed that the C7 plumb line fell 1.54 cm more anteriorly to the posterior superior corner of S1 in elderly, and this was positively correlated with decreasing lordosis, which is in contrast to our study where it was positively correlated with increasing kyphosis. So the uniqueness of our study can be elaborated by this table, wherein we have taken all the parameters including the sagittal vertical axis and their correlation, and also the difference between age groups and sex. The clinical significance of this study can be emphasized by this example. This patient was operated elsewhere, and as you can see, the lumbar lordosis is obliterated because of these straight rods, and as a result of which the patient developed proximal junctional kyphosis, for which she landed up in multiple surgical procedures, and she came to us with abnormal angular parameter values and sagittal vertical axis, for which a long segment fixation was needed. Thus, this is the first study in Indian literature to lay down the normal values of these sacropelvic parameters in Indian population. To conclude, Indian females have higher pelvic incidence compared to males, and subjects with high pelvic incidence have increased lumbar lordosis and increased sacral slope. Hence, when we are planning to fix or fuse these individuals with high pelvic incidence,